coming today. We're going to talk about maximizing your LinkedIn profile. Does everyone in here have a LinkedIn they've created already? Okay, cool. So LinkedIn is something that I found just through my own personal experience as a career counselor and also working with students at Rice and U of H in my previous positions, that is just becoming more and more popular, especially from hiring managers. And now even there's LinkedIn integration with some of the broader job search platforms such as Indeed and Monster. You can actually apply for a job quickly with your LinkedIn profile versus having to go ahead and actually use a resume. And so my prediction is that maybe 10, 15 years from now, it's going to be a little bit more focused on like LinkedIn profiles or some sort of like individual branding website versus actually using a resume. So we'll kind of talk about what are some of the most important things with LinkedIn. First, I'm just going to go quickly over some of our learning objectives today. So we really want to understand how to maximize your profile, and we'll do it section by section. That way you have a better understanding of what sections are important for your own unique background, your own unique experience, and how you can go ahead and best craft them to make you stand out in whatever you're trying to do, whether you're starting your own business, whether you're searching for a job, whether you're looking to get noticed for a different volunteering opportunity. We'll be able to kind of highlight those. You're actually going to be able to work on crafting several bullet points for your experience section, and we'll go through a specific formula that I like to use to craft really strong bullet points, and that's for both a resume and for LinkedIn, because a lot of the content will be similar. We'll talk about how to explore LinkedIn's alumni feature and also review LinkedIn messaging and how to best use both of those tools to go ahead and find contacts or potential hiring managers or recruiters. And then we'll also look at the LinkedIn jobs function, which is they have their own job search platform, which not my favorite. Indeed.com is my absolute favorite. So if you're searching for a job, please use that. But LinkedIn is actually pretty good, better than a lot of other ones. And so I'll talk to y'all about how to best use the job search feature in LinkedIn and how to best connect with people at those jobs. Because one of the really cool things that LinkedIn does is when you have a complete profile, it'll look at maybe where you've gone to school, and if you're applying for a job, it'll actually show you other people that went to your same university or school that are actually working at that company. And so you can kind of get leads automatically there. And so we'll kind of talk about those a little bit more. As a career counselor, sometimes people don't know what career counseling is, so I want to go ahead and give a shameless plug for my services. Career counseling is really focused on helping you figure out, what do I want to do with my occupational self, with my life in that kind of way. And that can be from a high school student figuring out what they want to do for their career path going forward, to people that are entering retirement and wanting to still and maintain that same level of engagement professionally, but are needing to do it in a different way. And so that involves self-assessment through maybe some MBTIs, Myers-Briggs type indicators to look at your personality, values assessments, strengths assessments, interest assessments too, like strong interest inventory, and then also the preparation piece. So resume reviews, LinkedIn profiles, cover letters. Sometimes, depending upon what kind of field you're going into, especially more of the creative fields, you may need a portfolio, and so we can help with that as well. And then also job search strategy and support, job offer negotiation, and then for students choosing a college major. So LinkedIn is primarily built as a networking platform. That was what it was designed to do. It was kind of meant to be a Facebook for professional people, for your professional world. It's expanded since then into a lot of different branches of LinkedIn, but I really want everyone to think of it as a networking platform. That is the intention that we're going to talk about it today, and really the way that you're going to go ahead and add things to it. The way you're going to add things to it is going to be really from the thought of this is a networking tool, okay? So the benefits of networking is you get a lot of peer learning, and that's one of the things I like the most from LinkedIn. When you go ahead and join groups or connect with people that are in your same profession, there's a lot of relevant articles that they'll share. There'll be relevant resources, trainings. If you have to do CEUs can be positioned there. And so there's a lot of really cool ways you can learn from other people just by scrolling on your feed on a daily basis. Much better than any other kind of social media feeds, because it's typically tailored to something that you want to know versus crazy aunts talking about politics. So a little bit better than what you'd find on Facebook. It also helps strengthen relationships and maintain relationships too, especially from like old colleagues you want to be in contact with still, but maybe you're working in somewhere else and you don't get the chance to go ahead and see them on a regular basis. You can still share ideas and catch up with them through this platform. It also helps elevate you within your professional community, because when someone goes ahead and just Googles you, you're applying for a new job, someone's going to Google you, they always will. If you have a good profile, if you have a lot of connections, LinkedIn's going to be one of the first things that's going to pop up there. And if your LinkedIn is public and available for people to see, that's a really good first impression for a hiring manager or a recruiter to see. And then also you get to have some mentorship, some advice, and then confidants outside of your organization, especially if you're looking to relocate. So if you're not from Houston, you don't like the flooding, you want to go to the mountains and go to Colorado, it's going to be hard for you to like network in person in Colorado unless you have the money to travel. So LinkedIn has the ability for you to network across the world, and it makes it really fun and exciting to meet new people. It also allows you to have access to the hidden job market, which is the fact that 80% of jobs are not posted online. A lot of times what's going to happen is that when someone is leaving a position, they may reach out to a friend on LinkedIn or a colleague being like, hey, I'm about to leave my position at Rice. I think you'd be a great fit. Be prepared to apply. Here are the qualifications. Here's going to be the job description they're going to post. Look on this date and they're going to post it. So some places like higher ed, they have to legally post jobs, but private companies, smaller businesses don't follow those same regulations and rules. And so it just allows you to access things through a network that may not be posted. Obviously, the LinkedIn jobs function are going to be posted because they're LinkedIn jobs. So again, networking can be helpful. It says face-to-face networking meetings because ideally LinkedIn is going to be that first step that you're going to then go ahead and just strengthen the relationships so you can meet in person. But you can also do video sessions, you can do FaceTime calls, or just chat through the messaging system, and that can be helpful. So when you're doing a profile, these are the kind of key things. If you take away one slide, this will be kind of the one slide you'd want to take away. These are kind of the key things that you need to have a really strong LinkedIn profile. The first is to brand yourself with a headline, and I'll go ahead and after I explain this, show you what I mean by that by actually logging onto LinkedIn. You'll need to include a professional photo as well. The photo that you use on Facebook is not okay. Having someone cropped out of the photo is also not okay. A photo of you and you probably don't have these. This was more for my college students, but like in your prom tux is not okay. That's probably the most formal picture you have, but for a professional photo, you really want it to be something that is industry aligned. And so if you're a corporate lawyer, it should probably be in a suit. If you're a therapist, we wear sweaters a lot. Sweaters are a good choice for that. And so those sorts of things are going to be really important. You're going to want to make sure that all the different sections of your LinkedIn profile are also filled out and complete. That includes education, honors, awards, activities, relevant projects or research, or work experience. Again, now some of these may not be as relevant anymore. For example, awards that I got were typically those in college or grad school. I'm a little bit past that now, so that section doesn't really exist for me anymore, and that's okay. You don't have to have every single one listed, but as long as your education, your experience section, your skills section's filled out, you're generally going to be in a good place. The professional summary is going to be probably the most important section of LinkedIn because that's what someone's going to look at first. That's going to be your, like if you're writing a resume, it would be your resume summary. Really just about 5 to 6 lines about you, what you're looking for, and why you're using LinkedIn. Particularly around job search or jobs transition, you're likely going to want to keep it fairly broad because sometimes depending on your company, they may be checking people's LinkedIn profiles. I've heard it happen before from hiring managers that check their employees' LinkedIn. So just be very cautious if your employer doesn't know that you're job searching and you want a job search. The way you're going to tailor your summary section and explain it will be a little wordsmithy. We're going to be pretty cautious around that. We also want to talk about recommendations and how to best collect them and how to give recommendations as part of that process. So if you give, therefore you receive. Same thing goes with LinkedIn recommendations too. So this is the first time I'm going to kind of break away from my presentation. I'm going to show you something on LinkedIn. Okay. I'm going to use my profile as an example just because I can do that and I log in. Now, this doesn't mean that your profile needs to look exactly like mine, nor should it, okay? If you're following along on your computer, the first thing I'm going to have you do is go into settings and privacy. This is also for anyone that's just going to use this at home. If you are working to go ahead and figure out, well, what should I include on my LinkedIn profile? I always recommend doing some happy LinkedIn stalking for professionals that are either aspirational figures for you or someone that has a really good completed profile. That way you can see what they've put, take some pieces for yourself if it makes it work and it fits you, and then you can add it to your own profile. But you want to make sure here how others see your LinkedIn activity. Your profile viewing options should be in private mode because you get these 3 different options here. If I go ahead and click on, let's say, your profile today, if I was just the automatic one that LinkedIn pushes it to, you'd be able to see who I am, my name, and be able to click and access my profile. Not a bad thing if you're in the active job search process, if you're trying to go ahead and reach out to a direct hiring manager, a recruiter, that's helpful. You can also have private profile characteristics. And so they'll typically look at your profile, decide what is the best fit there. And so they decided for me, it's social worker in the mental health care industry in Greater Houston. So I'll keep it pretty broad. I always recommend keep it private, anonymous LinkedIn member, because that way when you click on someone's profile, they won't be able to see who you are. So as you build and kind of create and play around with LinkedIn, go ahead and put it in private first. And then when you feel like you're ready to, I guess, be seen when you go ahead and look at people's profiles, then you can go ahead and change it to public, okay? There's also one other thing that I want to show you too that can be helpful is here when you see your shared job changes, educational changes, and work anniversaries of those on your profile, it's automatically going to be at yes. That's totally fine. But if you're first building a profile, what you're going to do is spam people with updates saying, you just added 1 education, you just added a 2nd education, you just added this job, you added another job. And so it'll just kind of be like a bombardment of notifications for a person that's connected to you with all the things that you're adding. So that can also be turned off as you're building, but bring it back up when you're no longer building your LinkedIn. If you're just doing some small tweaks here or there, just keep it open, that's fine. And that allows other people in your network to go ahead and see where you are going, what kind of transitions are you making in your career. If you just had a work anniversary, it's a good way to kind of reconnect with people you haven't heard from in a while. And so that can be a very helpful thing to think about. But always double check your privacy because the default is to share everything, as most online systems are. So when you go ahead and look at your LinkedIn profile, the first thing that you want to do is have a professional headshot, okay? It doesn't have to be like the most high quality headshot, as long as it typically shows your like bust and above, and it's in some kind of professional setting or background. I'm in a counseling field with very like growth focused, so you'll see a lot of plants, a lot of greens, a lot of blues, things that are calming just because that's the industry that I'm in. When I was working at Rice University, I either had Rice University on the background or a city skyline to show I'm a Houston career counselor on the background. And so as you evolve in your career and things change, just think of what are the different kinds of, not necessarily like emotions, but what are the different kinds of things that would make sense for my career? If I'm a lawyer, I may have a picture of the Supreme Court, or I may have a picture of the scales. So just kind of think about what may be a good fit for you. This is also something that'll be fairly important. If you're looking for job opportunities, you'll want to turn that on, okay? Because that'll let employers know that you're searching for jobs. A lot of times, if you're not actively searching for a job, employers they still may reach out to you, but if that's turned on, then you're significantly more likely to get some connections from a recruiter, okay? The About section of your profile will be very dependent upon what you're using LinkedIn to do right now. I'm not job searching, I'm very happy in this position, so mine is not focused in any kind of job search way. If it was, I would be highlighting my experience in different industries, what I'm hoping to do, what I would be interested in doing in terms of job titles or fields. And so the first line would not be like my personal mission statement, which was my objective statement, but rather what I'm seeking to do. it's beneficial to go ahead and put the amount of professional experience you have in a broad sense, and then kind of talk about what are some of your key accomplishments or main specializations, depending upon the work that you do, okay? The about section really shouldn't be more than like a paragraph and maybe a line or two, just because when someone's scrolling on your profile, it'll typically just show the first 2 lines. They have to click to see more. And so the first 2 lines should be really substantial. So if you're a job seeker, you really want to show what are you looking for, what is the industries you're looking for, what are the positions you're looking for. Be very targeted in that.
I'm sorry, how do you even get these different things to show up?
So you'll need to go ahead at the beginning and add different profile sections. And so you'll see this add profile section here. And then the first one will be about, and that should always be there as a default. And then you add work experiences, education, licenses, if that applies to you, volunteer experiences, and the others. And so it's.
I'm trying to follow along, and like add profile sections isn't even here. Maybe it's because it has the new platform.
Potentially. It should be on, when you go to the Me, it should be there on the add profile. And so you'll be able to go ahead and see the different sections. It'll then go ahead and show your activity. And so this is really important. Be cautious on what you like and what you comment on LinkedIn. I've seen many a person post things that are political, religious in nature, and unless you're working in politics or religion, best to not talk about that at all, especially in the job search realm, because you never know what your hiring manager's political preferences are or what their religious affiliations are, and you don't want that to be a reason why you get kind of blocked from that position at the get-go. And so people can always see the activity that you do, so just be cautious on what you like, what you comment, and what you post, okay?
It says, there's a link there that says manage followers, like, so can you still be linked with people, but then them not see your activity?
Yes. Okay. There's a way to go ahead and do that. That's the best thing for your current boss. If you're connected to them and you're searching for another job, you can do that too. Then what it's going to do is going to be the experience section. And then we'll talk about how to best go ahead and craft like the bullet points for this experience section. But it's going to go ahead and stack your experiences within one job. And so, or one company. So let's say you've worked for the same company for 20 years, but you've had different roles. It'll put it in a reverse chronological order, just like it would be on your resume, as long as the end dates are correct, okay? If the end dates are always left open, it'll just put the one you've been at longest, all right? So they'll stack them like that. And so at Rice, I was only 1 title. At U of H, I had 3 different ones too. And so you can go ahead and stack them there, okay? As for content and how many like bullet points should you put per experience, that really just depends upon what is most relevant for you. So let's say, for example, I get tired of doing individual and personal counseling and I want to go back into higher ed. I'd probably simplify some of my experience here at Edens, and I would add more into my assistant director and the career counselor roles at University of Houston, because that would be more relevant, okay? Oh, sorry. Also here too, I'm just going to show you a few other things really quickly and we'll go back to the presentation. You will then also have your education here. Education will also be listed in reverse chronological order based upon the end date, the date you graduated, or the date you completed the program, or if you didn't complete, just the date you ended attending, okay? Even if you didn't complete a degree at a college, if you attended and the courses that you took were relevant, I recommend putting it on there just because that allows you to connect with alumni from that university a little bit easier, okay? Licenses and certifications, this is something that most people won't have on their profile. It just depends on your field. So those that work in nursing, yes, this is a really important one. Those that have a license from like the state, so like counselors, we put this on ours too. But if it's something you're working in like healthcare administration, maybe there's like a Series 7 license that you've taken or some professional development course, it can potentially go in there. But a lot of times this section is going to be blank for most people.
Project management?
Yes, that would go there too, absolutely. So you're like Six Sigmas and all that stuff, that would go there, absolutely. Oh, sorry. And then you will have, after that, any kind of volunteer experience you have. So if you volunteer at all, go ahead and put that on there. That's really helpful. Volunteering is okay if it's political or religious in nature, because volunteering is not something that a lot of times employers will go ahead and screen for about what you're volunteering for. If it's something that's like a politically controversial issue like abortion, I would recommend just kind of keeping it as broad as possible and maybe not listing off the organization to which you're volunteering for. Just kind of keep the really politically controversial things off of LinkedIn completely.
So just as a,
Uh-huh.
just curiosity, if you volunteer, for example, to do guest lectures for places and it's within your field,
Yes,
does that go in under volunteering or does that go in under work experience?
volunteering.
Okay.
Unless that's the, let's say you want to turn that into a full-time independent practice and that's all you're going to do is just come in and do these trainings and things, then I would put it in experience because that's the one you're most interested in and that's what they're going to see first. But if it's just something that you do as part of your professional self, then volunteering experience is fine. And then you're going to have skills and endorsements, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth later. But
Can I
they'll
ask a
typically,
follow-on question?
of course.
She said,
Yeah.
in terms of, guest lecturing or whatever.
Yeah.
What about like CLEs where, you're on a panel and such?
Mhm.
It's more educational. Everybody's getting an educational
Yeah.
credit. Is that still in sort of the volunteering?
If it's like a one-time thing where you just do it once and that's it, I would put an experience underneath your job as something that you do as like a professional service for people. If it's something that's recurring that you do like
Like I've done
once
it like
a
8
month,
times over the last 5 years, right?
then yeah, I would go
So
ahead and
maybe
put
it
that.
up instead of the volunteering.
Mhm, yeah. Yeah, if it's something you do consistently, like I do it every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for the past 5 years, then yeah, that would be a volunteering thing. Recommendations are also going to be important too. Those that you receive will show first, those that you give will show second. For recommendations, I always recommend trying to have what we call 360 recommendations. So Anusha and Ben were 2 interns that I supervised during my time at Rice. Justina was someone that I worked with in a different way. Priyanka was a previous colleague of mine. Geneva was a previous intern, and then Helen was my former supervisor. And so you get a 360 picture there of you as an employee, you as a supervisor, and you as a colleague. So anytime you can have those 3 things as a recommendation, it's really helpful for a hiring manager to be able to see, oh, what are you like in this role, and this role? Accomplishments in organizations. So like a lot of my organizations that are no longer relevant. So things that I did back at an undergrad, like Psychi, National Honor Society. Okay, that's so long ago and really not that relevant that it's still something I want to show people, but it's not something that needs to be that present in my profile. And so the ones that are something that's interesting, but maybe not fully what you're wanting to display can go into your accomplishment section. Okay, and then interest will be the groups that you're a part of, but also people you follow, and so I'll talk about that too. That's just an overview of kind of the sections that you're going to want to use in your profile. No. Oh, never mind. I need to display something different for the recording. 1 second. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the experience section. So this is how you're going to develop really strong bullet points, because that's typically if you're applying with your LinkedIn profile for a job, or a hiring manager is really interested in you after your summary section. They want to get to know your experience a little bit more. This is where they're going to spend the most time. And this is kind of the experience section in your resume. So it kind of fits that the same. So when you're going ahead and developing a bullet point, there's 3 things that you want to do: an action verb, and then kind of the core content, what are you doing, and then the result, purpose, or impact of the accomplishment that came from that, okay? So organize is a really good action verb. Then you're going to want to say, well, what are you organizing? A marketing campaign, herd of sheep, whatever. And then what's happening? Well, it resulted in an increase in profits. It reduced time spent on research. It's for a higher quality role. And so what I want us to do for about 5 minutes now on your notes page is just work on crafting a bullet point or 2. For something that you've done previously at work or something that you're really proud of, here's a way to go ahead and do it I like color coding, it's like my favorite thing to do, especially for resumes. So you wouldn't actually put this as this color in your resume though. Let me just make that clear. It's going to be all black on the resume, but to help you develop it and make sure you're putting the things in, color coding can be helpful at the time. And so work independently or maybe with a partner for about 5 minutes to craft a bullet point or 2 on your personal experience that you'd want to put into LinkedIn, okay? And I'll leave this up as a way to kind of show examples. You'll also notice that there's a lot of numbers in here. Anytime you can quantify something, it's best. Even if it's a rough guesstimate, go ahead and quantify. Because the ability for an employer to see the impact that you've done and how it's something that is quantifiable is really helpful, because they can raise money from a development campaign, but how much money? $1, $3 million? There's too much of a range there. And so anytime that there's something that you want to show a big impact, I would recommend quantifying that.
And you can't pull those things from your volunteer section, or can you?
Yeah, you can quantify volunteering. Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, put it into your experience section.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can, to be honest, the good thing with LinkedIn is that you can really phrase things however you want. So let's say I completely disdained counseling and wanted to go into bookkeeping. Well, I was a treasurer for a nonprofit organization for 2 years. And so right now that's really hidden to my accomplishments because I don't do any kind of accounting work at this job, thankfully. And that's not something that I want to do. But if I were to want to do that, then yeah, I would bring it out of my volunteering section and then put it into my experience section because I'm trying to highlight that.
Okay.
So you don't have to feel as though if it's a paid job that's only experience. You can really kind of fiddle around and play with the way you're going to highlight things.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. More crafted toward what you're trying to.
More crafted for what you're trying to do, always. Mm-hmm. I really like your snowman socks.
Thank
I have some astronaut socks, but they're not as cool as the snow.
you.
I apologize, Andrew, for being
Uh-huh.
late.
Oh no, it happens.
Bad traffic.
Yeah.
I thought it would be gone.
Traffic's called this.
Rain. I heard rain. Yeah.
Can you use
Slick
two
streets.
verbs in the same
Oh, yeah.
development, performed,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera? Okay.
Yeah. So like, if I was to go ahead and do something today, I could even do 3. I could do like developed, created, proofed, and presented lecture on how to maximize your LinkedIn to an audience of however many of y'all here, utilizing effective communication skills. So I can even tie in, just throw in at the end, a transferable skill that can be relevant for
Oh,
the
okay.
position. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about the difference between LinkedIn skills and resume skills, because like communication would not be a resume skill. Too broad. Anyone can be a good communicator. It's too subjective. So that's why you want to show the transferable skills in your experience. But if you were to put communication skills in your LinkedIn, that's okay. That's a good thing to do. And so the skills rules between resumes and LinkedIn are probably the ones that diverge the most out of anything.
Well, it sounds like LinkedIn actually can give you a bigger.
You have a bigger range. Yeah,
bigger
you put a
range
lot
of
more
what
in.
You can actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll put a lot more into.
Get one going.
About a minute left, and you don't have to share these. It's not like something we're gonna do like a share and tell. It's just for your own benefit. Okay, so you get some practice. Okay. Now, you don't have to put on experience all the jobs you ever had. So prior to working in like higher education, career counseling, mental health counseling, I was a server and a bartender through grad school. Is that relevant for my job right now? No, not really. Are those experiences on my LinkedIn? No, they're taken off the LinkedIn. Before that, I was a research assistant at A&M doing brain scan research. Is that relevant for my job now? Somewhat more than serving and bartending, but still not that relevant. Plus, that was from like 2008. So not really relevant for where I am in my career journey now. So those things are not on my LinkedIn profile. Would you potentially put them on a resume? Perhaps, depending upon what I'm trying to do. If I wanted to be a bartender again, then yes, I would include that. Same thing on the LinkedIn. But a lot of times your older experience, if it's no longer relevant for what you're doing, just go ahead and cut it out.
What if it was very high tech?
Mhm.
It was stuff that you sort of want to be able to prove that you could redo again? Like, you're capable of learning this to begin with.
Yeah, and if it's something
so
that,
even though you're not doing it now, but there are aspects of it that you might want to sort of re-enter again? Can you
Yes.
sort of bring those things back in?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, it'll still organize it in a reverse chronological way. And so if you want an employer to be able to see that at the beginning, then you want to shorten the amount, or not shorten, decrease the amount of bullets that you would have in the other jobs that precede or follow that.
So it brings it up.
So it brings it up so it's visible. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. So again, volunteer experience can be different. Sorry, there's a little recording thing at the bottom, but you'll see here that it'll also go ahead and highlight the industry of what you're volunteering in. You don't put that in, that's just automatic. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, it just is what it is. I also want to show you two differences here about why I really like actually putting a bullet point in my LinkedIn profile, because as you can see, I find this one easier to read than this one, because yes, it ends in a period and both are capital, so you would assume it's starting again, but it can sometimes be confusing for the reader if you don't kind of track the eye to bullets. So even within LinkedIn, I recommend bullet points for all sections beside your summary section. Don't do it in the summary unless you're highlighting some specific key skills, which I'll show you in a second. But really, bullet points are the way to go in both a resume and in your LinkedIn profile. It just makes it a lot easier to read. Skills used to look like this. They've changed it in this way. The reason I like this better was because in the past, it would just go ahead and organize all your skills by the amount of endorsements that you have, okay? This is why connections are important, because the more connections you have, the more people that are going to endorse your skills. The more skills that are endorsed, it makes you look more professional that way. This isn't either or, because here you'll see that these are very specific and focused for one kind of job, which would be like user experience work, designing the interfaces between you and apps, kind of a computer science thing, but also uses a little bit of psychology and uses a little bit of statistics. And so all of Brian's skills here are relevant for exactly what he's doing. There's not one thing on this list that are, I'm not certain why that's there. If you look at the one next to it, then you start kind of getting a little bit more confused, because likely just kind of taking a look at what Jonathan has here, I would gather it's retail, just because of operations, inventory management, and fashion styling. But there's also graphic design, social media, writing. The skills are a little bit too disjointed, and so it doesn't really give the employer a clear career story as to what are you actually interested in, why are you skilled, and all of these things. And so I recommend when you're writing out your skills, make sure they're relevant to what you're trying to do with your professional self, because that way someone that looks through it can make sure, oh, yeah, you have these skills. The only one thing I would recommend is Microsoft Office, don't put, okay? Same thing on the resume, you may want to put it only if the job requirements specifically state you need to know Microsoft Office, because the reason why is that they'll be sending it through an automatic resume reader and you may get docked if you don't have that skill listed. It's called applicant tracking systems, and most companies use them now. It's unfortunate because humans don't really get to read your resume unless you pass that. But on LinkedIn, that's really not a necessary thing. Everything else will be necessary. This is what the skills look like now, okay? So how they're gonna break it up is industry knowledge and interpersonal skills. Okay, so these are my skills that I've listed. So they're still in two different areas. One's more student affairs, higher education, one's more in counseling still. So they'll lump them together and you don't have an option about what's gonna go into where. And so when you have a skill like resume writing, for example, I would recommend play around with it to see where you'd want it to highlight. So industry knowledge will always supersede interpersonal skills, and you can't change that. And so maybe resume development falls in interpersonal skills. And so play around with the way you're describing a skill, because it may elevate and bump up into industry knowledge if you want. That being said,
This is on my phone,
Yeah.
says featured skills and endorsements.
Yeah, so
I don't think I did that.
No, the phone does it differently. So
Okay.
the phone will do the first three, which is similar to this on your profile.
Okay.
So when you go to your profile, you still have the ability on your skills to go ahead and show which skills are going to be my top three. So you can choose 3 skills that you want that are relevant, and you just hit the pin here, but you only get 3. So make sure those 3 are relevant. It doesn't have to be the ones that are most highly endorsed. For example, higher education for me is really highly endorsed because I worked in there for 7-ish years. Am I working in higher ed now? No. Do I want to work in higher ed? Not right now. So that's a skill that I've unflagged, even though it has more, what is it? If it has more endorsements, it's not one that I'm trying to highlight right now. So when you go on a mobile, it'll be the top 3 that you've pinned are the ones that are going to be seen on your mobile version of LinkedIn. So really important to go ahead and choose the 3 that are relevant. The other ones you can play around with too. You'll see this little dashed line thing. I don't know why it's dashed line. It makes it look like a menu, but really it's a way to go ahead and move them up and down. And so you can move them up and down. In terms of the order for the other ones, it doesn't really matter too much, but the ones that are at the highest will typically get the most endorsements because it's just easiest for people to click on that. And so think about what would be most relevant for you. Additionally, what's going to happen is you're going to have these other skills, which they don't really know how to go ahead and categorize. Like career assessment, they don't know that's an industry skill. They don't know it's interpersonal, so they just put it as other. It's unfortunate because on these other ones, they could be directly relevant to what you're trying to do, but will automatically get flipped to the bottom because LinkedIn can't classify them. That's the reason why I don't like the new skills section versus the old one, and there's nothing you can do about that. So that just is what it is until LinkedIn updates it. But you can still go ahead and pin these, and they can be in those top 3.
So just one more thing,
Uh-huh.
because it says add, that you're under the skills section,
Yeah.
correct?
Uh-huh.
And it says add skills, can you free text your own skills, did you
Yeah.
say?
You can free text it, but what it'll do is try to lump it together. And if they can't find it to lump together, then you can put in your own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but then that'll automatically fall into other skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just one more question.
Uh-huh.
Initially, we had gone in and you said, go ahead and make your profile private.
Uh-huh.
Is that so that you can do all of this without anyone being able to sort of look in and see what you're doing?
Yeah, because you'll get notification for the skill. Mm-hmm.
And then once you've finally gotten the whole profile together, you can go in and make it
Public again.
public.
Mhm.
again.
Yeah. It won't matter with skills. So you can play with skills at any time and no one's going to get those notifications. It's only with experience, education, volunteering, and accomplishments they'll be able to see the changes. Yeah, they won't see the changes in the summary either. So if you're changing the summary, they won't see those.
But the only people that can see those are the people that you have
Connected with already.
connected with. Okay.
Because they'll get notifications if those notification preferences are on, which it automatically is. But people can still see your LinkedIn profile if it's in a public space. Even if it's private, like mine's private, but you can Google Andrew Tessmer, link is going to pop up. You can click on there. You'll get a very brief thing until you connect with me, and then you'll be able to see all my things.
Okay.
Mhm.
And how do you set what that little brief thing is that people see?
That'll be done on the privacy settings. Back when we showed those 3, it'll be shown there. Skipping through again. I mentioned recommendations already. When you're thinking of recommendations, really do think about people that can speak to your professional skills in a way that highlight what you're wanting to do in the future. And you can actually go ahead and say, hey, I'm really looking to enter into this new field. I'm looking for recommendations. I used to work with you and I really enjoyed our relationship. Would you mind writing a recommendation as I'm going into this area? And you can give them a resume or a little paragraph of what you're trying to do. And that can help them write a really good recommendation. But if you give one, likely you're going to go ahead and receive one. And you have the ability to like pause and send it back for revisions before you make it public on here. And so let's say the person writes a recommendation for you, but you don't like the way it sounded. Then you can be like, hey, do you mind changing this? And it won't post until you've approved it. And so that's probably the most secure function of LinkedIn is the recommendations, because it won't just automatically populate. You have to go back and forth and approve it specifically. And there's not really a number of recommendations that you really need. Again, the first 3 are always going to show up. The ones you receive will show up, and then the ones that you give will show up. And if you haven't ever received any, you've only given, it's the ones that you give that'll show up in this section.
So could you go over again
Yeah.
the sort of protocol on giving and receiving? Like, I know that I've received, I've given some,
Yeah.
but my LinkedIn profile is old.
Uh-huh.
So it doesn't have any of this right now.
Yeah. And
So if I am wanting to update a lot of my information and get some new recommendations, is it appropriate then once they give it, say, I'd be happy also to do the same? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
yeah, because what's going to happen is, let's say I want to get a recommendation from, I'll do this from a vet because she's my old coworker and I can do this and it won't matter. So then you'll select a relationship. And so a vet was, we worked in the same group, okay? And so you'll see all of these different kinds of options that you have. Students together, mentored, taught, was a client of yours, your client that. Be cautious on these, especially if you're working as like a counselor, because obviously that would then be a breach of confidentiality, and that's a big no-no. So if you're working in any kind of healthcare field where it's like a HIPAA kind of thing, just be quite cautious with that. Worked with you at different companies, worked with you at different groups. So this would be like, if let's say I was working with someone as a vendor, then that would be a relationship. You were senior but not did manage her directly. She was senior to me but did not management, reported directly to me, I managed them. So those are the different options that you got with your recommendation.
And that's just in the situation where I don't want to pick up the phone and call somebody, or send them an email.
Yeah, yeah, it just allows them to do it in the system. It's typically easier to go ahead and just call up someone or email, to be honest. But if you just want to do it through the system, this is the way to do it. And this would be the position. So it'll just bring up all the different experiences that you have. It'll look for every single experience that you have at your current or at any job that you have in your experience section, but also it'll bring in your education. Okay, so those are the only options that it'll give you. And then when you do that, next, then you can go ahead and it'll start like, hey, but can you write me a recommendation? Then you can go ahead and you really have as much space to type as you want here. And then I'll send it to them and they'll get a notification. They can write it in the system, then it'll be received. And then the ones that you give will also be public as well. So just make sure if you're giving a recommendation that it's well written, typo free, all that good stuff. Next, I'm going to show you one thing on messaging, because you won't be able to message someone that's a new contact initially without buying LinkedIn Premium, which I don't recommend buying it ever. You can do everything that you need to do with the free version of LinkedIn. So let's say, let me find someone that I don't know. Connected with all of them. I'm not connected with him. Okay, this is someone I'm not connected with. So let's say I want to go ahead and connect with him because I'm interested in getting into higher education marketing. What you're first going to see is that people that you're mutually connected with here will be listed. So I can go ahead and be like, oh, wow, we're mutually connected with these many people. So you can then go ahead and message these individuals once you're connected, be like, hey, I see that you're connected to Dan. Would you mind making me an introduction? If you wanted to. It's a lot easier to just message people directly now. It's not seen as too forward anymore by doing it via LinkedIn. So I just recommend reaching out directly to the person. You can mention the contact's name. So what you would do would be, if you try to message them, what's going to prompt is that LinkedIn will try to sell you LinkedIn Premium to do it. Try Premium for free, but then you get berated with emails and you have to pay. But what you can do is connect. And then when you connect, you'll add a note. So you have 300 characters to spend to introduce yourself in a professional way. If it's just someone that you're trying to connect with on a personal level, maybe they're in the same field as you, but you don't want to work for them, then just keep it simple, keep it light, keep it friendly. If it's like a potential supervisor, you're going to be a little bit more professional. If it's a recruiter or hiring manager, you're going to use a little bit more professional. 300 characters seems like it's short, but you actually have a good amount of space here to do like a mini cover letter. And so if you're writing your cover letter and you have that first introduction paragraph of what you're applying for, why you're applying, a little bit about you, that can kind of be supplanted in here pretty easily. And that would be a good thing to send to like a recruiter. you'd probably want to be a little bit more personal for a hiring manager. And if it's just a colleague, keep it casual. And then it'll send the invitation to them, and then it'll be in this pending state. If I am clicking on a LinkedIn with an N, you see they'll have a little gold N. That means they're a member of LinkedIn Premium. Nothing really happens on your end besides that they can generally see your information. If you turn it on private, it typically won't show, so it shouldn't be an issue. But if it's public, then they'll definitely be able to go ahead and see it, even if their stuff is set to private. With messaging, I'm going to show you a few things in the slide, and then I'm going to show you all LinkedIn jobs to kind of wrap up today, because it's a helpful tool. Oh, we're back to the beginning again. Sorry, guys. So I have some samples of messages that I've sent along the way, because I want to show you some examples of how you can go ahead and message like complete random strangers, or people that you may have met briefly at a conference that you want to stay connected with. So Jennifer was someone that at the time was working in career development for specifically international students. And I was in a working group for professional association for international students. So I thought that would be a good fit for me to be able to connect with her, but also learn from her experience. So I met her at the SOAS conference with the Southern Associations of Colleges and Employers, like Career Center kind of stuff. And I had a specific request for a student that needed some assistance, and I thought she could be a good person to connect me to a resource. And so that was like a message that I sent. And it's very email-like. It's formatted as though it's an email. That's appropriate when you're using LinkedIn messages to format them more formally than you would if you were doing like a Facebook message. If it's something that is formal, if it's something like these, which are like colleagues, you see that we're using little smiley faces. It's more of a conversation. Once the conversation gets flowing, then you can be just like, thanks so much. But at the beginning, you want to keep it a little bit more formal, especially if it's a new contact for you. This one here is one that's a little bit more, I would say, casual. So Lauren and I met together at a conference a while back. Now she's working at U of H, where I used to work, actually in the exact same role that I used to have. And she's also interested in becoming a licensed professional counselor, which I think she actually just got, if not is in the entrance stage. And so we've been connected too. And so this is something that we just kind of do a follow-up. You'll be able to go back in all of your messages throughout all time to go ahead and see people. So what I like to do is every 6 months, just go ahead and check out who I've been connected with. And if there's a message to someone that maybe I didn't follow up on, or maybe I haven't heard from a while, I'll be able to go ahead and just kind of reach out to them directly. So that's kind of a sample for something that's more common. This is an answer to a request that someone sent to me. Ed is now working as a recruiter in New York, not for that company anymore, he actually was working somewhere else. But he found me through this Professionals You May Know, which is a feature that doesn't really exist anymore, but it did at the time. And so he wanted to talk to me about what my experiences were in career development, because he was looking to transition to something different. You're able to go ahead and put your email in a LinkedIn message too, which is fine. And then this was just a quick response back. And we actually did connect and things were good. Now you'll see this is a version of an InMail. So he actually got LinkedIn Premium, but he's able to reach me who does not have LinkedIn Premium, and I can reply to those messages. So that's kind of what I want to show you. If someone from LinkedIn Premium reaches out to you, you can respond, even if you don't have that. Same thing. And then once you're actually connected, then you can respond back and forth. Sarah is a social worker. She has some really, really cool stuff with children with a lot of different disadvantages. And I actually saw her on PBS. So I was like, oh, she's on PBS, she's on TV. I haven't talked to her in a while. Maybe I should catch up. And so I did like this. And then we had lunch after that. Be cautious of typos, because I feel in love instead of fell in love. So just always watch your writing when you're doing this. Obviously, Sarah is a friend and colleague that we did a presentation for. So she's not like a hiring manager, but if you're looking to go ahead and send an email to a hiring manager, really double check your typos and don't make my same mistake. And again, this is one too where maybe someone is reaching out to you, even if you're not a hiring manager, but you have maybe some advice or some recommendations for them. I always recommend spending the extra 5 minutes, giving someone an answer, helping someone along the way. Obviously, I'm a counselor, so maybe I'm a little bit biased about enjoying helping, but it really does help you as an individual to do this because I don't know if you believe in karma or just good fortune, but a lot of times things will come around if you invest the time and energy in helping other people. And LinkedIn is a really good way to do that because really it doesn't take more than 5 minutes for me to write this and say, hey, I'm not the hiring manager. Here's the website. Let me know if I can be of any help. It's quick, it's easy, and it shows that I care. And it's just it's a good form to do, especially on LinkedIn. And that's a way that with networking, you can kind of keep that up. I'm going to show you now the jobs and the alumni, and then we'll wrap up with a little bit of questions at the end, okay? The LinkedIn jobs function is very helpful, okay? What's going to happen first is it's going to automatically find your location. So Greater Houston is where it'll automatically search for me, and then I can go ahead and type in any kind of keywords. These ones here will be ones that are based on my profile saying, oh, well, you're a counselor, you should probably look at for these things too, okay? So there'll be suggested ones. That doesn't mean that you want to do that. So for example, I counsel older teens, adults. I am not a kid kind of person. I don't want to counsel children. And so even though I don't have anything with kids on my profile, it'll still show something like that. So just be wary there. And then the first thing I'll say, because you viewed this one thing, so there was a job, campus leadership program director for the Holdsworth Center. I was curious, well, what is that? And so I checked on that. And then it'll go ahead and show you different jobs based on what you searched. This is my absolute favorite thing with LinkedIn versus any other job board online like Indeed or Monster, is because once you look at something, it registers that, and then we'll go ahead and just populate other jobs for you that are similar that would be relevant. So it's really easy to job search on LinkedIn because it'll just kind of provide you with this information. And then based on your profile, what's on your profile, you'll be able then to go ahead and see different kinds of positions that would be a fit. Let's go ahead here and use one. And also you'll be able to see like, okay, Baker Bots. I have 2 people that are actually working at Baker Bots now. And so then I can go ahead and maybe reach out to them to forward my application along, ask them who the hiring manager is, get some inside information there. If not, it'll show you alumni. Okay, maybe I'll connect with anyone, but there's 12 other U of H alums that work here. And then when I click on something like this, you'll be then able to see who within those 12 people work there. And then you can go ahead and contact them, connect, and reach out. And so it's a very, very fun thing when you're trying to just gain information or apply to something, to be able to reach out and connect with someone. It also allows you to, in the people, well, I'm going to go outside of jobs for 1 second because I want to show you something that's a really helpful tool. When you go to search, you can search for people here. And then it'll go ahead and search by your connections or location or company. But let's say I am looking for a new job in the Bay Area, and I want it to be at Google, okay? Then what you can do is say, well, maybe there's going to be someone that went to A&M that works at Google. And then I want maybe a title for human resources. So I'm just going to use human, okay? The simpler you do with your filters, the more that's going to pop up, okay? So you never know if someone's going to be like a human resources specialist, human resources manager, human resources generalist. So if you keep it quick, you'll be able to see that. So there's no one that fits that filter for me. So let's then go, instead of having someone at A&M, just have someone in human resources.
And it's not considered inappropriate just to click on someone and then send them a brief message saying why you're...
Not at all. The worst that'll happen is they just don't reply to you. Yeah, that's literally the worst that'll happen is they just never reply.
So basically this is a numbers game. You just put things out there and hope that people stab back.
if it's targeted and well worded, it's not as much as if you're just applying online and just submitting application after application. This is a lot easier and you get a lot more quicker, but yeah.
I meant in terms of making the connections.
Yes, absolutely. Especially for like hiring manager recruiters that you don't know, it is kind of a numbers game. And if you see someone that has like a mutual connection to you, then that's a good sign that there's some kind of thing that you can go ahead and talk about between each other, even if it's that individual. And then, like I said, you can then go ahead and connect. And then the connection message, you'll be able to go ahead and have that tailored note. Okay.
You'd recommend a tailored note
Always.
all the time.
Always. Unless it's like your best friend, then don't worry about that. But if it's like anyone else, yeah, go ahead and
So I
tailor the
didn't
note.
know that when I sent out my first, I got two requests back, or two things back from people. And one of them was somebody I'd actually gone to school with, but she's got a higher level position than I do, but she's very colloquial with I mean, that's okay,
Yeah,
I guess.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's someone that you know casually, then yeah, you can do something easy.
Okay.
I want to show you one other thing that's really helpful. And it used to be an easy way to do it. Unfortunately, LinkedIn changed this like as I was making the presentation. So there used to be this thing, and if you just did linkedin.com and hit /alumni, it would take you to all the alumni of your school. Now it's going to say this doesn't exist. So it'll still bring up your school though. So what you'll do then is just cut out alumni, go to school, and then you can go ahead and look at the actual alumni, which now they've labeled as people, which again doesn't make sense to me, but whatever, LinkedIn. And now you can see where they live, where they work, what they do, and what they studied, and what they're skilled at, and how you're connected. So let's say, for example, I'm looking to go ahead and begin a career at Amazon Web Services, okay? So I can go ahead and then look at all the alumni from a university that work at Amazon Web Services, but I don't want to go anywhere. I want to live in Atlanta. So then I choose Atlanta Web Services, and now I have two people that work in that industry at that position that have a college background that is the exact same as mine. You have a significantly higher likelihood to be able to connect with them and get a name of a hiring manager, even if they're not the hiring manager, or even in the same department. But they're an alumni. They know. They have some kind of traditions, background, something to connect you to, and it's a lot easier to do that. So if you have a university, it'll automatically go to the most recent university. So A&M is where I did undergrad. I don't know if other Aggies in the room? No? Yay, okay, good. So the Aggie network is definitely the best. Sorry, other schools, it really is. And so then you can go ahead and do like Texas. I wonder how they do it. Okay. Well, actually, if you go to your own profile and you went to school there, you'll be able to just click that and then it'll bring up the alumni tab. So if you just go to your thing there and hit.
It's because it's Association of Former Students, not alumni.
Ah, this is true. This is true. And so in here, you'll be able to go ahead and do the exact same filtration system, okay? So hopefully that gets just a quick overview about how to best maximize and use the system, but I have time for a few questions if anyone has specific questions about your LinkedIn or just how to use it best.
So I have a million questions, but so when you're starting to build your profile, like when I started to even make connections on the site, I had nobody when I logged on. So I just kind of like, first it brought up a list of people that were in my email.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well maybe this person and this person. And then, went ahead and connected. But then I just took a stab into the universe and said, well, I wonder if this person's on there. Is that how you really start beginning to build the connections?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just kind of like, I hope they respond and I hope they respond. And,
You can always use the people filter too, not just for connections, but you can use the people filter for like a, let me show you an example. So I can go ahead and let's say use title of career counselor at the University of Houston, because I used to work there. And so let's say I used to work here and this was a role that I had, then you'll be able to go ahead and find all the people in that role Okay, cool. That have that title in there, and then you'll be able to go ahead and connect with the people there.
Sending
that
them
have
a
it.
nice little note saying, hi, my name is Kelly. Even if you do or do not know them
Yeah.
personally.
If you know them personally, you don't have to introduce your name. Just be like, hi, it's good to connect with you again. It's been a while since we last saw each other when we worked.
Is there a way that if
Uh-huh.
you connected with somebody, but you didn't send them a little note, to
Uh-huh.
go back and add that little
No.
note? Okay.
No, once it's done, and it's in this pending space until they go ahead and either check it off or don't check it off, which
They
really doesn't
ignore it.
happen. Yeah, they ignore it in LinkedIn, but that's really uncommon.
If they do that.
Yeah.
And you hadn't had a note, can you try it again with the note?
Absolutely. If they ignore it the first time, and then you can go and do it again. Yeah.
Got it.
There's not like really to my knowledge, there's not a blocking thing that LinkedIn does. You can't like block someone. To my knowledge, I don't think that's possible.
I don't know if there's any more.
I don't know. I've never done that before, so maybe it's just something I don't know. But that's a good question. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Just a quick question. What is a good follow-up, I guess, time frame if they didn't answer to the first note where you're not seeming like you're harassing them, but
Yeah.
I guess.
So like, for example, you send them the initial message and you hit connect, and then you don't hear from them for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks time is a good time to do it.
Okay.
I recommend 2 weeks unless you're like in a desperate space within job search, then like a week, but not like the next day and then the day after. So typically 2 weeks, 2 weeks, a week, and then after like the 4th attempt and you don't hear anything, just move on.
Okay.
Yeah, just move on.
You can block somebody after you've connected with them, but I don't have any pending.
Yeah, okay. That's good to know. So you can block people. And then at the beginning of your feed, it'll always show you jobs that are recommended for you. These ones are not as good as the jobs in the jobs tab. And then sometimes also, I'll show you one other thing in here. You'll see this little thing called LinkedIn Easy Apply. What that does is all you have to do if I want to apply for it is just click this, and it literally just applies with my LinkedIn profile. Bam, done. You may have to include a resume sometimes if they require it, but a lot of times you'll just go and put your phone number in here, and then you just submit it, and you've applied through LinkedIn. So you don't actually have to do a resume. This one requires you to do so, but other ones don't. Yeah. And then a lot of times too, they'll have, so this is good. So you'll see the poster of the job listed. So this is a recruiting person. Now, if you do InMail, it'll try to charge you, but what you can do, and it won't let you click on her name. So what you do is actually just copy it, paste it.
Loar,
Okay. L-O-A-R.
AMY, yeah,
Uh-huh.
LOAR.
And then you'll be able to find her there, and then you click on her profile, and then you can go ahead and do more, and then you can go ahead and connect, and then you add the note again, and voila, you've just saved yourself $10 a month or something. So yeah, there's no need to buy premium. Other questions you all have? Yeah.
So a minute ago, it said something about one person has viewed your profile, and you click on that,
Uh-huh.
but it goes to you have to buy LinkedIn Premium to
Yes.
see who that is. Okay, so there's no way to bypass that, sort of see.
The only way you can see who views your profile is if you make your own profile completely public. So if I was to go back into my privacy settings here, and in my settings and privacy, I was going to add this, and I make it completely public, then yes, you can see who clicks yours, unless they're private themselves.
Okay.
But that's the only way you can actually see it without paying.
So when you're in private mode,
Uh-huh.
which you just had it set to private
Yep.
mode, are the people who are already sort of in your group able to see your profile?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They want, like, let's say I want to go ahead and look at my friend Yvette's profile right now. It's private. She won't know that I went to go ahead and saw her profile. She'll get an email like you saying one person looked at your profile, but she won't know it's me.
Oh,
Which really isn't that big of a deal. Like if you're connected with somebody, they can still look at your stuff. To me, it's not really necessary to let them know that I've just looked at their profile.
okay.
It doesn't really do anything.
Do you leave yours in once it's complete in which status?
I leave mine in private mode at all times, but I'm also a career counselor. And so sometimes in career counseling sessions, I'll use like example profiles and show them. So I don't want to just have random people know that I always show their profile off because I'm not interested in actually
So
working
even
with them.
when you're job searching, you can leave in your private.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
A lot of times when recruiters actually contact me,
Yeah.
they want to like connect.
Mhm.
Is there any disadvantage to that? Because I've kind of been like,
No disadvantages at all. Well, potentially one. Let's say that you and your supervisor don't have the best relationship. Your supervisor's really into LinkedIn and wants to check your connections. They can, if you're connected, they can see the connections that you're connected with, and they can see that you connected with a recruiter, but it won't show like a time limit of who you connected with. It just say you're connected to this person. And so unless they're like a really paranoid individual and really looking through to see who specifically you're connected to, there's really not a downside to just connecting with everyone. Because again,
you could have connected with them 6 years ago.
Yeah,
You did that.
exactly. They won't know. Now, if you liked a job posting they put, they can see your activity that you like that, if your activity is public.
Is this platform mainly for older individuals that have had jobs as opposed to, say, for instance, high school students?
You should not find a high school student on here at all. You will find college students, but college students' profiles will look very much like, I'll show you some because I have a lot of students that connected to me back when I was working. A college student's profile will look very much like this. It'll be typically a basic headshot, have their university in the background, tell them they're a student, and then have a few things. This is actually pretty good. Don't use I's though. So like I. This is telling a story and you need bullet points instead. So that's a negative on his. Sorry, Jason, not to critique you right now in front of everyone. But yes, that's something that you wouldn't do. Now, college and above.
He's a student, he gets a pass.
He gets a pass, yes. He has a LinkedIn profile, so that's ahead of most, so good job.
And he's got a good picture.
And he has a good picture.
Yeah, that's 500.
And he has 500 plus connections, yeah.
So I have one more like protocol
Yeah.
question. So what if somebody you know is way at the top of the field, you are not afraid to cold call and you're not afraid to send them a connection with a statement of I'm really interested in getting into what you're specifically doing in the field.
Yeah.
Is it ever like kind of like, oh, you should not do that to send them?
No, the worst of the time they just don't reply.
Okay.
Like you can message Bill Gates on here. He won't reply to you, but you can, you know. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing negative that comes from that. Now, obviously, if it's like full of typos and grammatically incorrect, then that's not the best impression. But again, it's not really a negative.
Would you recommend following people?
Yeah. I follow
Like Bill Gates?
Yeah.
Or
Well, Bill Gates, I don't personally follow, but definitely
if you're
you can follow.
interested in their work.
Yeah, like I follow Brene Brown just because I like the stuff that she puts out and it's relevant to my field. So yeah, but yeah, you can follow anyone. Again, politics and religion, be cautious. So anyone can also be political or religious figures. So just be cautious around those areas. But other than that, anyone else is good. Well, I have some cards in the back. One last.
How do you endorse someone now?
So let's say, for example, let me see. Michael Marr is a super awesome guy. And so let me go ahead and see kind of what skills I like from him. He's super knowledgeable in energy, because he is a program advisor for the energy industry at Baker.
Okay.
So I'm going to say energy, yep. What I'll do is give you how good is he? Well, he's highly skilled at that.
Okay.
And how do I know him? Well, I worked together indirectly because he was a board member when I was at Rice. And so I would submit that.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all you do.
Thank you.
And then it'll show you who they were endorsed by in that space that are highly skilled. So it breaks up like by highly skilled and others. Yeah. If there's other questions, feel free to go ahead and send me a quick email. My cards are in the back. But other than that, feel free to come back to any of our other speaking sessions. I believe this is the only focused one on careers. I think the other ones are more mental and personal health. But I hope that this was helpful for y'all. And if you can, please on the back, fill out the quick evaluation form. You can just leave it on the back table next to my cards. All right, thank y'all very much. Hope you have a good night.
Thank you.